close your eyes and listen closely for a moment. Can you hear it? It is a sound older than history, a rhythm more constant than the beating of a heart. It is the eternal song of water. Before cities were built, before maps were drawn, the rivers were flowing, carrying the secrets of the earth to the sea. Tonight, let us drift away on that current, leaving the noise of the present behind as we float down the timeless story of the river. High above the world, where the air is crisp and thin, there lies a kingdom of silence and snow that has existed since the very beginning of time, a place where the noise of the modern world cannot reach, and where the only sound is the soft sigh of the wind drifting over jagged peaks of granite and stone. Imagine yourself standing there now, in the safety of your mind, wrapped in warmth and looking out over a vast expanse of white that glitters like a field of diamonds under the gentle touch of the morning sun. This is the roof of the American continent, perhaps the high Rockies or the rugged Cascades, where the earth stretches up to touch the sky, and where the great story of the river begins its long and winding chapter. Everything here is still, so incredibly still that you can almost hear the heartbeat of the mountain itself, slow and steady, waiting for the warmth of the day to wake the sleeping ice that clings to the rock face. As the golden light of dawn spills over the ridge, it touches a patch of ancient ice, a glacier that has held its breath for centuries, and in that moment of warmth, a miracle occurs. A tiny bead of water is born, no larger than a tear, clear and pure and trembling with the potential of the ocean it will one day become. It releases its hold on the ice and begins to slide, a single drop of liquid crystal moving over the rough gray stone, joining another drop and then another, merging into a tiny thread of water that shimmers in the light. This is the eternal spring, the humble beginning of a mighty force, starting its journey with a whisper so quiet it can barely be heard, trickling down through the cracks and crevices of the mountain, guided by the ancient law of gravity that pulls it gently toward the earth below. Follow this trickle with your mind's eye as it navigates the mossy rocks, finding a path where no path seems to exist, flowing over pebbles that have been smoothed by thousands of years of this endless caress. The water is cold, refreshing, and filled with the oxygen of the high altitudes, carrying the memory of the snow and the clouds from which it came. It moves slowly here, taking its time, for the river knows it has a long way to go, and there is no need to rush, just as there is no need for you to rush into sleep, allowing yourself to drift along with the current of this story. As the stream descends, it encounters the first signs of life, small patches of vibrant green moss that cling to the sheltered side of the boulders, drinking in the moisture and softening the hard edges of the stone landscape. The sound of the water changes now, growing from a silence to a soft murmur, a gentle melody that sounds like a lullaby hummed by the earth itself. It splashes softly into a small pool, a basin carved out of the rock by time and persistence, where the water pauses for a moment to rest, swirling slowly in a circle, reflecting the deep blue of the sky and the white of the passing clouds, before spilling over the edge to continue its descent. You can see the steam rising from the sun-warmed rocks, meeting the cool air of the shade, creating a fine mist that hangs over the water like a veil, adding to the dreamlike quality of this high alpine world. Here the air smells of wet stone and clean ice, a scent so pure it clears the mind and settles the soul. The little stream begins to find its voice, babbling softly as it meets other tiny tributaries, little ribbons of silver running down from the snowfields to join the gathering flow.
They merge seamlessly, becoming one,
just as your thoughts are merging into a singular focus of relaxation and peace. The stream enters the tree line now, moving from the exposed rock into the sanctuary of the high forest where the ancient pines and spruce trees stand like silent sentinels guarding the banks. The scent of pine needles and damp earth rises to meet you, a grounding and comforting aroma that speaks of safety and shelter. The light here is dappled, filtering through the dense canopy of green branches above, creating moving patterns of light and shadow on the surface of the water that dance and sway with the rhythm of the breeze. The stream widens, carving a deeper channel into the soil, moving over roots that stretch out like old fingers to touch the cool flow. It is here that the river truly begins to take shape, gathering strength and purpose, yet remaining calm and undisturbed. You might imagine a deer stepping quietly out from the shadows of the trees, lowering its head to drink from the crystal-clear water, its ears twitching softly, before fading back into the forest, a fleeting moment of connection in this wild and peaceful place. The water flows over a bed of smooth river stones, colors of red and brown and slate gray, clearer than glass, magnifying the bottom of the stream so that every grain of sand is visible. It is a mesmerizing sight, the way the water ripples and folds over itself, never stopping, never tiring, always moving forward with a grace that is effortless and serene. This is the water that will eventually water the plains, turn the mill wheels, and carry the ships, but for now it is just a stream in the mountains, innocent and new. The sound has deepened into a steady rushing noise, a white noise that blocks out all other distractions, creating a cocoon of sound that wraps around you, protecting you from the worries of the day. As the stream continues down the mountainside, it encounters a drop, a small waterfall where the water cascades over a ledge of rock, falling through the air in a curtain of white foam before landing in a deep, dark pool below. The sound of the splash is rhythmic and repetitive, a natural metronome that slows your breathing and matches the beating of your heart. The mist from the waterfall drifts into the surrounding ferns, leaving droplets of dew on their delicate fronds, shining like jewels in the filtered sunlight. This place feels timeless, as if it has remained unchanged for 1,000,000 years, a sanctuary where nature is in perfect balance. The water in the pool is dark and still at the edges, inviting you to imagine floating there, weightless and supported, looking up at the canopy of trees and the patches of blue sky peeking through. The flow leaves the pool and widens further, meandering now, taking broad curves around the trunks of massive redwood or cedar trees, their bark thick and fibrous, smelling of history and age. The river is becoming a storyteller, carrying with it the minerals of the mountain and the leaves of the forest, weaving them into the fabric of the land. It is a slow journey, a lazy journey, devoid of urgency, simply obeying the call of the ocean far away. You can feel the coolness of the canyon walls as the river cuts through a narrow pass, the stone rising up on either side, layered with the history of eras gone by. The sun only touches the bottom of this canyon for a few hours a day, keeping the air cool and shadowed, perfect for resting. The sound of the water echoes off the walls, amplifying the soothing tone, surrounding you completely. It is a harmonious sound, complex yet simple, a symphony of splashes and gurgles and steady flows that acts as a balm for a tired mind. As the river emerges from the canyon, it enters a high meadow, a hidden valley filled with wildflowers, purple lupine and yellow daisies swaying in the gentle wind. The water slows down here, spreading out, becoming glassy and smooth, reflecting the tall grasses that line the banks. It is a picture of absolute tranquility, a landscape painted in soft greens and blues and golds. The river moves silently through the meadow, disturbing nothing, nourishing everything, a lifeline for this hidden paradise. You can imagine lying in the soft grass beside this quiet stream, listening to the water slide past, watching the clouds drift slowly overhead, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face and the cool support of the earth beneath you. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to do. Just exist here, in this moment by the eternal spring. The water that started as a frozen drop on a high peak has now become a gentle presence, a companion in the stillness. It flows on, past the meadow, entering the deeper woods again, moving towards the lowlands. But we stay here for a moment longer, lingering in the peace of the beginning, in the purity of the source. The journey of the river is long, but it takes it 1 inch at a time, just as you are drifting toward sleep, 1 breath at a time. The eternal spring continues to flow, regardless of the season, regardless of the time of day, a constant reminder that life moves on, that patience is a virtue, and that rest is natural and necessary. Let the image of that clear, cold mountain water wash away any tension you are holding. Let it cleanse your thoughts, leaving only a quiet, empty space, ready for dreams. The river is your guide, leading you away from the noise, down the mountain, into the valley of sleep, flowing, always flowing, into the deep and restful night.
Now we pull back our gaze from the single mountain spring and widen our view to see the vast canvas of the continent itself, drifting higher in the theater of the mind until the land below spreads out like a great tapestry of green and brown and gold. From this height, we can see the true nature of the rivers, not just as water flowing over stone, but as the ancient veins of the earth, a complex and living circulatory system that has kept the planet alive for eons. Long before the first cities rose from the dust, long before the first footstep fell upon the soil, these rivers were already at work, engaged in the slow and silent labor of sculpting the world. Close your eyes and imagine the earth as it was in the deep past, a time of quietude and immense power, when the continents were still finding their shape and the mountains were young and raw. In this prehistoric silence, the rivers were the master architects, patient and relentless, armed with nothing but the softness of water and the endless expanse of time. It is difficult for the human mind to comprehend the patience of a river, for we live our lives in hours and days, but the river lives in eras and epochs. Think of the water moving over a shelf of granite, day after day, year after year, century after century. It does not fight the rock. It does not strike it in anger. It simply flows over it, caressing the stone with a persistence that eventually wears the mountain down. This is the story of how the deep valleys were formed, not by a sudden cataclysm, but by the gentle, unyielding touch of the river, carrying away 1 grain of sand at a time. Picture the great North American landscape, the rolling hills of the Appalachians or the jagged peaks of the West, and realize that every curve, every hollow, every canyon is a testament to the power of flowing water. These rivers are the scribes of history, writing their stories into the bedrock itself. Consider the ancient glaciers, those miles-thick sheets of blue ice that once covered the northern lands, heavy and silent under a pale prehistoric sky. When the world began to warm and those great giants began to retreat, they left behind the scars and the pathways that would become the riverbeds we know today. The water melted and surged, finding the path of least resistance, carving out the Great Lakes, filling the basins and cutting the channels that would eventually feed the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Ohio. It was a time of transformation, a slow awakening of the land as the water brought life to the barren soil. Imagine the sound of that ancient world, a low and steady hum of rushing water that echoed across a landscape devoid of machines, a pure and natural vibration that resonates with the deepest parts of our own being.
The rivers connected the land, linking the high snowy peaks to the fertile plains and the salty marshes of the coast, creating a unified whole. As you lie there in the comfort of your bed, feel the solidity of the earth beneath you, the ground that supports the foundation of your home. That ground has been shaped by these ancient forces. Beneath the soil, deep underground, there are aquifers and subterranean rivers flowing in total darkness, ancient waters that have filtered down through layers of limestone and sand over thousands of years. They are the hidden reserves, the secret veins that run deep within the body of the planet, moving silently, unseen and unheard, yet vital to the balance of everything above. Think of the Colorado River, working its way through the desert floor, slicing through layer after layer of red rock, exposing the history of the world like the pages of a book. Each layer of stone tells of a different age, a different climate, a different world, and the river has seen them all. It is the witness to the passing of time. The water that flows in the rivers today is the same water that flowed then, recycled and purified by the water cycle, rising as mist, falling as rain, flowing as river, returning to ocean. It is a closed loop, a perfect circle of renewal that has no beginning and no end. This continuity offers a profound sense of peace, a realization that we are part of a system that is stable and enduring. The worries of the fleeting moment seem small when compared to the geologic grandeur of the river's work. Imagine the shape of the continent as a living body, with the Mississippi River Basin acting as the great central artery, a massive tree of water with its roots in the Gulf of Mexico and its branches reaching out to the Rockies and the Appalachians. It pulses with the seasons, swelling with the spring melt and settling into a lazy rhythm in the heat of summer. This rhythmic flow is the heartbeat of the land. The river does not hurry. It does not worry about obstacles. It simply finds a way around them or waits until they wear away. It teaches us the art of non-resistance, the strength of yielding, the power of softness. As the river carves the land, it also deposits rich soil, creating the fertile deltas and floodplains where life can flourish. It is a generous force, taking from the heights and giving to the lowlands, seeking always to find a balance, to find a level. This seeking of balance is what pulls the water downwards, a gravitational embrace that is as constant as the spinning of the earth. Let your mind drift over these vast distances, flying silently over the winding ribbons of silver that crisscross the dark land below. See the moonlight reflecting off the surface of 100 rivers, from the Hudson in the east to the Columbia in the west, all of them flowing, all of them working in their slow, hypnotic way. They are the old ones, the elders of the landscape, wiser than the forests, older than the hills. When you listen to the sound of a river, you are listening to the voice of the earth itself, speaking a language that requires no translation, a language of flow and release. The river tells us that everything changes, yet the essence remains the same. The banks may shift, the course may alter, the water levels may rise and fall, but the river remains a river. It is a comforting thought to hold on to as you drift towards sleep, the knowledge that the earth is taking care of itself, that the ancient veins are flowing, that the lifeblood of the planet is circulating just as it should. There is nothing you need to manage, nothing you need to control. You can surrender to the flow, just as the water surrenders to the pull of the sea. Imagine yourself becoming part of this timeless process, your breath matching the slow rise and fall of the tides, your thoughts dissolving like silt in the current. The history of the earth is a history of water, and tonight you are safe within that history, held in the arms of a planet that has weathered every storm and continued to spin in the velvet darkness of space. The ancient veins of the earth are strong and deep, and they carry you now, gently and safely, deeper into the realm of relaxation. The geology of the earth is a slow story, a very long book with pages made of stone and ink made of water, and we have only just read the introduction. As the water shaped the continents, let this story shape your dreams, smoothing out the rough edges of your day, filling in the hollows with peace, and carrying you effortlessly downstream towards the ocean of sleep that awaits us all.
The geological age of stone and ice gives way now to the age of the forest and the first human heartbeat to sync with the rhythm of the river, bringing us to a time long before maps were drawn on paper, a time when the map was etched into the memory of the people who walked softly upon the earth. Imagine the North American wilderness as it was thousands of years ago, a vast and unbroken cathedral of green, where the trees grew so thick and tall that they blotted out the sun, and the only highways were the shimmering ribbons of water that cut through the dense woodlands. In this silent world, a new sound emerged, not the crashing of rocks or the roar of a waterfall, but a sound so faint it could barely be distinguished from the wind, the soft, rhythmic swish of a paddle slicing through the water. This is the era of the birch bark canoe, the vessel of the first navigators, a masterpiece of engineering born from the forest itself. Picture a white birch tree standing tall and proud in the northern woods, its bark peeling in paper-thin layers of chalky white and silver, glowing in the twilight. The indigenous people, the guardians of this land, looked at the birch tree and saw not just wood, but a way to travel, a way to float, a way to become one with the river. They treated the tree with reverence, offering thanks before carefully peeling the bark in great sheets, pliable and strong. They gathered the roots of the spruce tree to sew the bark together, and they collected the sticky pitch from the pine trees to seal the seams against the water. It was a vessel made entirely of the earth, created without a single nail or metal screw, a boat that was light enough to be carried on a man's shoulders, yet strong enough to carry a family and their goods across a continent. Imagine seeing one of these canoes now, resting on the shore in the gray light of early morning, the mist clinging to the surface of the river like a soft blanket. A figure approaches, moving with the silent grace of a deer, stepping into the canoe without causing a ripple. The craft settles into the water, buoyant and eager, ready to dance with the current. The navigator kneels low to the water, feeling the stability of the cedar ribs beneath him, and with a single smooth motion pushes off from the bank. The canoe glides forward, leaving the land behind, entering the domain of the river spirits. There is a specific rhythm to this travel, a hypnotic cadence that defines the day. Dip, pull, feather, return. Dip, pull, feather, return. The wooden paddle enters the water without a splash, catches the heavy liquid, and propels the craft forward with a silent surge of power. It is the J stroke,
a subtle twist of the wrist at the end of the stroke that steers the canoe straight, correcting its course without breaking the momentum. This motion becomes a meditation, a physical chant that clears the mind and calms the soul. As the canoe moves upstream or down, it does not fight the river, it works with it, reading the swirls and the eddies, finding the calm water behind the rocks, using the current as a partner rather than an adversary. The silence of the birch bark canoe is its greatest magic, for it allows the navigator to pass through the world unnoticed, a ghost upon the water. Imagine gliding past a bank of tall reeds where a moose stands knee-deep in the mud, its massive antlers dripping with water as it feeds on the aquatic plants. The moose lifts its head, ears swiveling, but it hears nothing but the wind in the willows, and so it returns to its meal, undisturbed by the human presence passing just a few yards away. This was the way of the first navigators, to move through nature without disrupting it, to observe without interfering. The river was their grocery store, their highway, and their home. They knew every bend, every sandbar, every deep pool where the trout lay hiding in the shadows. To travel by canoe is to see the world from a different perspective, low down, level with the water striders and the dragonflies. You see the underside of the leaves as they hang over the banks. You see the intricate roots of the trees exposed by the washing of the current, creating little caves where the river otters play. The sun rises higher, burning off the mist, turning the gray water to a brilliant blue that reflects the sky above. The heat of the day warms the resin on the canoe, releasing the sweet, sharp scent of pine and cedar, a perfume of the wilderness that fills the air. Miles melt away under the steady rhythm of the paddle, a journey measured not in hours, but in the position of the sun and the changing of the light. There were no engines to shatter the peace, no horns to break the concentration, only the sound of water parting and closing again. It was a life of immense physical effort, yet it was also a life of profound peace, a life lived in the flow. The river connected the tribes, linking the Ojibwe to the Dakota, the Algonquin to the Iroquois, a vast network of trade and communication that spanned the continent. They carried furs and corn, stories and songs, paddling from the headwaters of the Mississippi to the thundering falls of the east. But tonight, in our story, there is no trade to be done, only the drifting. Imagine the day beginning to fade, the golden hour approaching, when the light turns soft and amber. The water settles down, becoming a mirror of the sunset, painted in hues of violet, orange, and deep indigo. The navigator slows his pace, letting the canoe drift with the current, the paddle resting across his knees. The birds are singing their evening songs, the thrush and the loon calling out across the lonely water, a hauntingly beautiful sound that echoes off the distant hills. It is time to find a place to rest. The canoe is steered gently toward a sandy beach, the bottom of the craft grazing the soft sand with a whispering sound. The navigator steps out, pulling the lightweight vessel up onto the grass, flipping it over to drain the few drops of water that may have collected. A small fire is built, the smoke rising straight up into the still air, carrying the smell of wood smoke, which is the smell of comfort and home. As the stars begin to poke through the canopy of the night sky, one by one, reflecting in the dark flowing river, the navigator lies down on a bed of pine boughs, listening to the water lapping against the shore. It is the same water that has been flowing since the beginning of time, the same water that carried the ice, now carrying the dreams of the sleeper. The birch canoe, that vessel of light and wood, rests nearby, a silent companion waiting for the dawn. The connection between the human and the river is complete, a bond forged in silence and respect. There is a sense of deep safety here, a knowledge that the earth provides everything that is needed: shelter, transport, food, and beauty. You can feel that safety wrapping around you now, the feeling of being held by the natural world, supported by the ground, watched over by the stars. The river flows on in the darkness, a guardian of the night, murmuring its ancient secrets to those who are quiet enough to listen. The whispers of the Birch canoe are the whispers of a simpler time, a time when we moved at the speed of the current and lived by the light of the sun. Let that simplicity fill your mind, washing away the complexities of the modern world, leaving only the rhythmic dip of the paddle, the scent of the cedar, and the gentle rocking of the boat. You are the navigator now, drifting on a river of dreams, safe in your vessel, gliding silently into the soothing embrace of sleep, carried by the timeless flow of the water towards a destination of perfect rest.
We leave the whispering forests and the agile birch canoes behind to approach something far greater, something so vast and commanding that it defines the very heart of the American continent. We come to the river that the indigenous people called Mississippi, the Great River, the Father of Waters. It is a legend as much as it is a body of water, a liquid spine that runs from the cool pine forests of the north all the way down to the warm and humid lowlands of the south, dividing the land in two and binding it together all at the same time. To stand on the banks of the Mississippi is to stand in the presence of royalty, for there is a solemn dignity to this river that demands silence and respect. Imagine yourself standing on a high bluff, looking down at the water as it stretches out below you, a mile wide, a moving ocean of brown and gold that reflects the changing moods of the sky. This is not the clear, rushing water of the mountain streams we saw earlier. This is a mature river, a river that carries the weight of half a continent in its currents. It is thick with the earth itself, carrying the soil of Montana, the clay of the Dakotas, and the silt of Ohio, mixing them all together in a slow and swirling brew. The flow here is deceptive. It looks calm, almost still in places, moving with a lazy grace that hides the immense power beneath the surface. It is a giant that never sleeps, a force of nature that pushes relentlessly southward, day and night, obeying the ancient pull of the Gulf. There is a specific smell to the Mississippi, a scent of wet earth and ancient mud, of willow trees and damp air, a scent that is heavy and grounding, reminding you that this river has been flowing here since long before the pyramids were built. As the sun begins to set over the western bank, the water takes on a sheen of copper and bronze, glowing with a deep inner light. The air grows still and heavy, especially as we travel further south in our minds, down past the confluence where the Missouri joins in, down past the great bluffs, into the flat and fertile delta lands. Here the air is warm and wraps around you like a soft blanket, filled with the humidity that softens the skin and slows the pulse. The sounds of the day fade away and are replaced by the chorus of the night, the rhythmic chirping of the crickets, the deep croak of the bullfrogs in the shallows, and the distant hoot of an owl in the cottonwood trees. The river moves silently through this soundscape, a dark ribbon of peace cutting through the land. Imagine being out on the water now, perhaps on a sturdy wooden raft like the characters of old stories, drifting in the center of the channel where the current is strongest and smoothest.
There is no need to steer, no need to row. The river does all the work, carrying you along in its own pace. You lie back on the rough wood, looking up at a sky so big it seems to swallow the world, filled with more stars than you have ever seen, the Milky Way stretching like a mirror of the river above you. The water laps gently against the logs of the raft, a soft slapping sound that is hypnotic and repetitive, lulling you deeper into a state of relaxation. You are safe here, floating on the bosom of the Father of Waters, protected by its size and its strength. The Mississippi is a river of stories. Every bend and every sandbar holds a memory of the past, of steamboats with their tall chimney stacks puffing smoke into the air, of travelers seeking a new life in the West, of musicians humming the blues on the front porches of shacks along the levee. But tonight, those stories are just whispers in the wind, faint echoes that add to the rich atmosphere without disturbing the quiet. The river widens even more, becoming a lake in motion, and the far bank is just a dark line of trees against the horizon. The feeling of isolation is profound, but it is not lonely. It is a solitude that cleanses the spirit. You can feel the slow rotation of the earth here. The river acts as a gyroscope, steady and true. Watch the eddies swirl on the surface of the water, small whirlpools that form and vanish in seconds, spiraling circles that catch the moonlight and spin it around before smoothing out again. The water is cool and dark, a mystery that flows beneath you, deep and unknowable. The sheer volume of water is comforting. It represents an endless supply, a resource that never runs dry. It teaches us about abundance and about the ability to let go, for the river holds on to nothing. It releases everything to the sea. As you drift past the dark shapes of islands in the stream, covered in dense brush and vines, you might see the glowing eyes of a raccoon washing its paws at the water's edge, or hear the splash of a fish jumping to catch a moth, ripples spreading out in perfect rings that disturb the reflection of the moon. The Mississippi is a world unto itself, a separate kingdom with its own laws of time and motion. Here, time seems to slow down. The frantic pace of human life on the land does not apply to the water. The river has its own time, measured in seasons and floods and droughts. To be with the river is to step out of the clock time and into the river time, a time of patience and surrender.
The great barges that travel this water move slowly, pushing ahead with a low, thrumming vibration that you can feel in your chest, a sound that is more like a purr than a roar. Even the commerce of the river is slow and deliberate. As you continue to float south, the air becomes filled with the scent of magnolias and jasmine, sweet and heavy, mixing with the earthy smell of the river. The trees along the bank change, becoming draped in Spanish moss that hangs down like gray beards, swaying in the gentle night breeze. It is a landscape of dreams, a gothic and beautiful world where the line between reality and sleep blurs. The mighty Father of Waters cradles you, carrying you past the sleeping towns and the silent fields, past the levees that stand like walls of earth protecting the land. You are part of the flow now, a speck on the back of a giant, moving towards the ultimate release of the ocean. The river is a constant. It was here before you were born, and it will be here after you are gone, flowing with the same quiet dignity. This thought is not frightening, but comforting. It relieves you of the burden of importance, allowing you to simply be, to simply exist as part of the natural order. The water supports you, the current guides you, and the night protects you. Let the image of this great, wide, brown river fill your mind, displacing any anxious thoughts, pushing them to the banks like driftwood, leaving the center of your mind clear and calm. The Mississippi is a lullaby sung by the continent, a low and rumbling song of water and earth that resonates with the deepest parts of your brain, triggering the instinct to rest. Flow on, mighty river, flow on through the darkness, carrying our dreams down to the sea, as we drift deeper and deeper into the velvety blackness of a peaceful and historic sleep. We leave the humid lowlands and the wide green valleys behind now to travel westward on the wings of the night wind, crossing the great plains and rising into the high desert, where the air is thin and crisp and the silence is as vast as the sky itself. Here in the American Southwest, the earth opens up to reveal its deepest secrets, a landscape of red rock and shadow, where the rivers have taken on the role of the master sculptor. Imagine standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon, under the light of a full moon, a silver orb hanging in a sky so dark it looks like velvet. Below you lies a chasm of incomprehensible size, a mile-deep gash in the crust of the planet that stretches out into the darkness like a sleeping dragon. It is silent up here on the rim. The wind whispers through the gnarled branches of the pinyon pines, and the scent of dry sagebrush and juniper fills the cool night air. But if you listen closely, leaning out over the abyss, you can hear a faint and distant roar, a continuous low-frequency hum that rises from the very bottom of the world. It is the river, the Colorado, the great red river that has spent the last 6 million years carving this masterpiece of stone. It is difficult to reconcile the softness of water with the hardness of rock, yet here is the proof of their ancient battle, a battle won not by force, but by patience. The river does not strike the stone with a hammer. It rubs against it with the gentle persistence of a lover, carrying microscopic grains of sand and silt that act as the finest sandpaper, wearing away the granite and the limestone and the sandstone, one grain at a time. It is a process so slow that a human lifetime is not even a blink of an eye in its duration, a process that operates on geologic time, deep time, a time scale that brings a profound sense of peace because it renders all our modern urgencies irrelevant. Imagine descending now, floating down through the layers of time, past the white limestone cliffs that shine like bone in the moonlight, past the red hermit shale that looks like rust, down into the inner gorge where the rocks are black and twisted and as old as the foundation of the earth itself. The temperature rises as you descend, the cool air of the rim giving way to the warmth radiated by the stones that have baked in the desert sun all day. You reach the banks of the river at the bottom, and here the roar is loud and rhythmic, a white noise that drowns out everything else, a curtain of sound that wraps you in solitude. The water here is cold, rushing down from the snowy peaks of the Rockies far to the north, carrying the energy of the mountains into the heart of the desert.
In the moonlight, the water looks like liquid obsidian, black and glossy, swirling with muscular power as it moves around massive boulders that have fallen from the cliffs above. The river is the artist, and the canyon is the canvas, and the work is never finished. Every second the water flows, it changes the canyon imperceptibly, deepening the channel, sharpening the bend, polishing the walls until they're smooth to the touch. It is a lesson in the power of consistency, the knowledge that small actions, repeated over time, can move mountains, or, in this case, cut through them. The walls rise up on either side of you, steep and imposing, blocking out the horizon so that all you can see is a ribbon of starry sky directly above. The moonlight casts long, dramatic shadows across the canyon floor, turning the familiar shapes of rock into mysterious castles and towers and temples. There is a profound stillness here despite the movement of the water, a feeling of being held in the womb of the earth. You are safe here, hidden away from the world, in a place where only the river travels. The water laps against the sandy beach where you stand, a rhythmic cadence that slows your breathing. In and out, in and out. The river breathes just as you do. You might imagine a great blue heron standing motionless on a rock in the shallows, a silhouette against the silver water, waiting with infinite patience for a fish, perfectly adapted to this river world.
The canyon walls echo the sound of the water, creating a cathedral of sound that resonates in your chest. The geology here is a history book written in stone, layer upon layer of sediment laid down when this land was a sea, then a desert, then a sea again. The river has cut through it all, exposing the memories of the planet. As you drift in your imagination down this moonlit canyon, you feel the weight of the rock above you, not as a burden, but as a blanket, a heavy and comforting presence that anchors you to the ground. The sheer verticality of the landscape forces you to look up, to lift your eyes to the heavens, reminding you of your connection to the cosmos. The moonlight casts the spray of a rapid, turning the droplets into diamonds that hang suspended in the air for a fraction of a second before falling back into the flow. The river moves on, winding its way around the great bends, the horseshoe bend, where the water makes a complete circle in the rock, a testament to its determination to find a way forward. It never stops, it never rests, and because it never rests, you can. You can hand over your vigilance to the river, letting it keep watch while you sleep.
The sculptures of stone that surround you, the mesas, the buttes, the spires, stand as silent sentinels, guardians of the night. They have stood there for millions of years, and they will stand there for millions more, unchanging in the face of the fleeting night. The river is the blood of this dry land, a lifeline that brings moisture and life to the deep desert. You can smell the wet sand and the willow trees that grow in the narrow strips of green along the banks, a fresh and organic scent that is clean and pure. The flow of the Colorado is a powerful sedative, a reminder that the forces of nature are in control and that everything is proceeding exactly as it should. There is no chaos here, only the orderly and inevitable laws of physics and gravity playing out in a beautiful dance. As you travel further down the river in your mind, the canyon widens and then narrows again, a breathing landscape that expands and contracts. The light of the moon shifts as the night wears on, the shadows moving like the hands of a slow clock across the canyon walls. It is a hypnotic display of light and dark, of solid and liquid. The ancient veins of the earth are open here, and you are flowing through them. The sculptors of stone are at work, silent and invisible, using the water as their chisel. Feel the coolness of the canyon air settling over you, a refreshing touch that soothes a tired brow. The river carries you effortlessly. You are weightless, floating on a raft of tranquility through a museum of geologic wonder. The worries of the human world cannot reach you down here. They are left far above on the rim, blown away by the desert wind. Down here, there is only the rock, the water, and the moon. The rhythm of the river becomes your rhythm. The strength of the stone becomes your strength. You are witnessing the slow and steady heartbeat of the earth, a pulse that is slow enough to sleep by. The carved walls protect you, shutting out the noise, shutting out the light, creating a perfect chamber for rest. Let the image of the great Red River winding through the deep black canyon lull you into a state of total relaxation. The stone is patient, the water is persistent, and the night is long and peaceful. Drift along this ancient waterway. Let the current take you where it will, deeper into the shadow, deeper into the comfort of the stone, deeper into the dreamless sleep that awaits at the end of the river's long journey.
The rugged canyons and the silent birch forests fade gently into the sepia tones of history as we drift forward in time to an era of elegance and steam, a golden age where the river was the grand highway of the nation and the heartbeat of America was measured in the rhythmic turning of a massive red paddle wheel. Imagine it is a lazy midsummer afternoon in the middle of the 19th century. The year is perhaps 1855, and the sun is hanging low and heavy in a sky the color of crushed blueberries. The air is warm and thick, filled with the sweet scent of honeysuckle drifting from the shore, and the faint, comforting aroma of coal smoke and polished wood. You are aboard a magnificent steamboat, a floating palace of white timber and gingerbread trim that gleams in the sunlight like a wedding cake upon the water. She is the queen of the river, broad and flat-bottomed, designed to glide over the sandbars and shallow waters with the grace of a swan. The river here is wide and brown, a slow-moving mirror that reflects the tall white chimneys and the intricate railings of the upper decks. Everything moves slowly in this heat, a languid pace that feels like honey pouring from a spoon. You can imagine yourself sitting in a high-backed wicker chair on the promenade deck, your legs stretched out, a cool drink resting on the table beside you, watching the green banks of the Mississippi or the Missouri slide past in a never-ending panorama of trees and fields. The sound of the boat is a lullaby in itself, a deep and steady thrumming vibration that travels up through the floorboards and settles into your bones, relaxing every muscle in your body. It is the sound of the great steam engine at work, a rhythmic chuffing noise, soft and breathy, like the breathing of a giant beast that is friendly and tame. At the stern of the boat, the massive paddle wheel churns the water, turning over and over with a mesmerizing consistency, splash and lift, creating a wake of white foam that trails behind the boat for miles, marking your path. The water cascades off the wooden slats of the wheel in sheets of silver, catching the light, a visual rhythm that matches the auditory rhythm of the engine. There is no rush here, no urgent destination, for the journey itself is the destination. On the deck around you, passengers speak in hushed tones, their voices blending with the sound of the wind and the water. Men in linen suits and women in wide skirts holding parasols against the sun, enjoying the gentle breeze created by the boat's motion.
You might hear the faint strains of a fiddle or a piano coming from the grand salon inside, a slow and sentimental tune that speaks of home and longing, drifting out through the open windows to mix with the cry of the gulls. Up in the pilot house, high above the water, the river pilot stands at the great wooden wheel, a figure of absolute authority and calm. He knows every snag, every sandbar, every shift in the current. He reads the face of the river like a familiar book. You can feel safe closing your eyes because he is watching the water for you. From time to time, you hear the melodic call of the leadsman down on the bow, measuring the depth of the water with a weighted line, singing out the measurements in a voice that carries over the water like a song. Mark Twain, he calls, meaning 2 fathoms deep, safe water, deep water. The words Mark Twain drift on the breeze, a reassurance that the way is clear and the passage is safe. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to change, the harsh brightness of midday softening into the golden hour. The river turns to liquid amber, glowing with an inner fire, and the shadows of the willows on the bank stretch out across the water to touch the hull of the boat. The heat breaks, replaced by a cooling breeze that signals the approach of evening. The boat continues its steady pace, churning along, passing small towns where children run down to the levee to wave, their figures small and distant, silent in the vastness of the landscape. You wave back in your mind a slow and lazy greeting before settling deeper into your chair. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and rose and bruised purple, a spectacular display that reflects perfectly in the calm water. The world is doubling, sky and river becoming one, and you are floating in the center of it all. Lanterns are lit along the deck, soft yellow orbs of oil light that cast a warm glow on the white paint, creating a cozy and intimate atmosphere.
The steam whistle blows, a deep and mournful sound that echoes off the distant hills, announcing your presence to the night. A sound that is lonely yet comforting, like the howl of a train in the distance. Now the night has truly fallen, and the river becomes a mystery, a dark road illuminated only by the moon and the stars. This is the time of steam and starlight. The smoke from the tall chimneys trails out behind the boat, a dark ribbon against the stars, occasionally lit up by a spark from the furnace that dances like a firefly before extinguishing in the cool air. The paddle wheel continues its steady pace, a tireless heartbeat in the darkness. The water alongside the boat is black as ink, but where the wheel strikes it, it churns into phosphorescent white, glowing with the energy of the motion. You can lean over the rail and watch the water rush by, hypnotic and dizzying in its speed, washing away your thoughts, washing away your worries.
The interior of the boat glows with warmth, the clinking of china and the murmur of conversation fading as the passengers retire to their cabins, leaving the deck quiet and empty. You are alone with the river and the night. The air is cool and damp, smelling of the river mud and the cooling vegetation of the banks, a primitive and earthy smell that grounds you. Above, the Milky Way stretches like a celestial river, mirroring the flow of the water below. The boat seems to be suspended in space, floating between the stars above and the stars reflected below. The rhythm of the steam engine seems to slow down, becoming a gentle pulse, a heartbeat that you can sink your breath to. In and out with the turning of the wheel, in and out with the flow of the river. The pilot house is dark, save for the glow of a pipe and the dim light of the binnacle, the pilot standing his silent watch, guiding you safely through the bends and the narrows. There is a sense of immense trust here, a surrender to the journey. You do not need to know where the river goes. You only need to know that you are being carried. The riverboat is a cradle, rocking you gently with the motion of the water. The sounds of the shore are distant and muted, the croaking of frogs, the chirp of crickets, the occasional splash of a fish. They are the soundtrack of the night, natural and soothing. The vibration of the deck is a constant massage, loosening the tension in your back and shoulders. You feel heavy, your eyelids feel heavy, weighted by the relaxation and the peace of the moment. The age of the riverboat is an age of time, of taking the time to travel, of taking the time to see, of taking the time to be. It is a slow travel for a slow mind. The great wheel turns, pushing the water back, pushing the boat forward, a cycle of energy that is efficient and endless. You can imagine retiring to your cabin now, a small and cozy room with a velvet curtain and a soft, narrow bed. The window is open, letting in the cool river air and the sound of the water rushing past the hull. You lie down, feeling the mattress rise and fall ever so slightly with the movement of the boat. The sound of the paddle wheel is muffled now, a distant thumping that acts as a white noise machine, blocking out the silence. You are safe in your floating room, traveling through the heart of the continent, protected by the wood and the steam and the skill of the pilot. The river flows on, carrying you away from the waking world, carrying you into the realm of dreams. The steam and the starlight mix together in a swirling mist that wraps around the boat, creating a cocoon of safety. Sleep comes easily here, borne on the current, delivered by the river. The boat moves on into the darkness, a point of light and warmth in the vast night, churning softly, breathing slowly, taking you deeper and deeper into the comfort of a historic and peaceful slumber.
We leave the broad and muddy currents of the south and the dramatic canyons of the west to travel now to the corner of the country where the earth is old and the seasons are distinct, arriving in the quiet woodlands of New England, where the rivers are smaller but filled with a delightful purpose. Here in the rolling hills of Vermont or the stony valleys of New Hampshire, the water flows clear and cold over beds of granite and slate, bubbling through forests of maple and oak that shade the banks with a canopy of green and gold. In this landscape of stone walls and hidden valleys, we find a scene of perfect rustic harmony, the old watermill standing by the edge of the stream, a structure that has stood there for perhaps 200 years, weathering the storms of winter and the heat of summer with a stoic grace. Imagine a building of weathered gray timber, or perhaps red brick, its foundation stones covered in a thick velvet layer of deep green moss that speaks of age and dampness and quiet resilience. The mill sits right at the water's edge, intimate with the river, leaning over the flow as if listening to a secret being whispered by the current. The star of this scene is the great wooden water wheel, a massive circle of dark, wet oak that dominates the side of the building, half in the air and half in the water, turning slowly and steadily with a rhythm that is as reliable as the rising of the sun. It is the song of the mill, a song of water at work, a song that is repetitive and hypnotic, perfect for lulling a busy mind into a state of deep rest. Watch the water as it is diverted from the main stream into the mill race, a narrow channel that leads it gently but firmly toward the wheel. The water creates a smooth sheet of liquid glass as it slides down the wooden sluice, rushing forward to meet the buckets of the wheel. As the water hits the wooden slats, there is a soft and heavy splashing sound, a rhythmic whoosh and splash that repeats over and over again. The weight of the water catches in the buckets, and gravity takes over, pulling the great wheel down, turning it inch by inch, creating a cycle of motion that has no beginning and no end. Listen closely to the soundscape of the mill. It is a complex layer of soothing noises, the high-pitched trickle of the water leaking from the sluice, the deep bass note of the wheel plunging into the tail race, and the low, resonant creaking of the heavy timber axle turning in its housing. It is a sound that feels like home, a sound of productivity without stress, of work being done by the earth itself. The wheel turns round and round, slow and heavy, wet and glistening in the dappled sunlight that filters through the leaves. It is mesmerizing to watch, your eyes following one specific bucket as it rises from the stream, dripping water like diamonds, travels up the arc to the top, and then descends again to be filled once more. This circular motion is a mandala for the mind, trapping your attention in a loop of calmness.
Inside the mill, though we remain outside in the fresh air, you can imagine the heavy grindstones turning against each other, crushing the grain into soft white flour, a process as slow and natural as the growing of the wheat itself. The air around the mill smells of wet wood and crushed grain, a wholesome and earthy scent that is comforting and grounding. There is a sense of partnership here between the human and the natural. The river is not conquered, but invited to help, its energy borrowed for a moment before being returned to the stream. The water that leaves the wheel foams and swirls in the pool below, aerated and white, before smoothing out and rejoining the main channel to continue its journey to the sea. The mill pond above the dam is a mirror of tranquility, the surface flat and still, reflecting the image of the mill and the sky, holding the water in reserve, a symbol of patience and stored energy. You can see dragonflies darting over the surface of the pond, their wings iridescent in the light, and perhaps a turtle sunning itself on a floating log, perfectly motionless, soaking in the warmth. The song of the mill is a monotone in the best possible way, a steady drone that blocks out the erratic noises of the world, creating a wall of sound that protects your peace. It says to you that there is no hurry, that one turn follows another, that the work will get done in its own time. The river never stops flowing, and so the wheel never stops waiting, ready to turn whenever it is needed. In the winter, when the icicles hang long and sharp from the roof and the stream is rimmed with white, the mill might sleep, but even then the water flows beneath the ice, a silent promise of the spring to come. But now, in our story, it is a warm afternoon, and the mill is humming its lullaby. You can imagine leaning against the warm stones of the mill wall, feeling the vibration of the machinery deep in your back, a gentle shudder that loosens your muscles. The sound of the splashing water becomes a mantra, washing over you, cleansing you of tension. Splash, turn, creak. Splash, turn, creak.
It regulates your breathing, slowing it down to match the lazy rotation of the wheel. The surrounding forest absorbs the sound, softening it so that it doesn't echo, but rather settles into the landscape like a heavy mist. The birds in the trees seem to sing in harmony with the water, the chirping of sparrows and the call of a cardinal adding bright notes to the steady rhythm. This is a place where time has stopped, or rather where time is measured not in seconds, but in revolutions of the wheel. The history of this place adds to its comfort, knowing that generations of people have stood here listening to this same sound, finding the same peace in the flowing water. It connects you to the past, to a simpler way of life, where we lived closer to the land. The water that turns the wheel is the same water that fell as rain days ago, gathered by the hills, filtered by the forest, and now performing its final act of service before moving on. There is a nobility in this water at work, a humble service that asks for nothing in return. As you listen to the imaginary sound of the mill, let the rotation of the wheel wind down your thoughts, spiraling them down into a center of stillness. The visual of the spinning wheel can act as a hypnotic induction, leading you deeper and deeper into relaxation. Imagine the wheel slowing down, just a little, as the water flow gently decreases with the evening, everything becoming quieter, softer, more still. The sun begins to dip below the tree line, casting long shadows across the mill pond, turning the water to a dark reflective glass. The song of the mill softens to a whisper, a gentle murmur that is barely there, just enough to keep you company as you drift off. The river continues to flow past the stones, past the wheel, past the sleepy village, moving on into the twilight. You are left with the feeling of work well done, of a day completed, of a natural order that holds you safe. The mill stands guard by the stream, a sentinel of stone and wood, while the water sings its eternal song, a song of life, a song of flow, a song of deep and restful sleep.
The rhythmic clatter of the water wheel fades behind us now, swallowed by the gentle bends of the river as we float deeper into the wilderness, entering a sanctuary where the only structures are those built by instinct and nature, a place where the river slows down and widens into quiet marshes and grassy banks lined with tall, swaying reeds. Here in this secluded world, the guardians of the banks keep their silent watch, living their lives in perfect harmony with the flow of the water. The sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows that stretch across the surface of the river, and the air grows still and cool, signaling the time when the shyest creatures emerge from the safety of the woods. Look closely at the edge of the water, where the cattails grow thick and tall, their brown velvet heads standing like soldiers in a row. Amidst the green stalks stands a figure of absolute stillness, the great blue heron, a master of patience and a symbol of solitude. He stands on one long, slender leg, the other tucked up beneath his feathers, his body frozen in a pose of intense concentration. He is a statue made of gray and blue feathers, blending so perfectly with the slate color of the river and the shadows of the bank that you might drift right past him without ever knowing he was there. His golden eye watches the water, unblinking, waiting for the flash of a silver minnow, but he is in no hurry, for he knows that the river will provide. There is a profound lesson in the heron's stillness, a reminder that sometimes the best action is no action at all, simply waiting and breathing and being present in the moment. Watch as he slowly, ever so slowly, lowers his leg into the water, not making a single ripple, placing his foot on the soft mud of the riverbed with a delicacy that defies his size. He is the guardian of the shallows, a silent monk of the river, radiating a sense of calm that permeates the entire landscape. If he were to take flight, it would be a slow and majestic affair, his great wings unfurling like a gray blanket to catch the air, lifting him silently over the water, his neck curved in an S shape, a prehistoric silhouette gliding against the darkening sky. But for now, he remains grounded, a comforting presence in the twilight. As we drift past the reeds, we notice a V-shaped ripple moving across the glassy surface of the water, spreading out wide and vanishing into the banks. At the point of the V is a small dark head, wet and sleek, moving with purpose and determination. It is the beaver, the industrious architect of the river, returning to his lodge as the day turns to night. He moves through the water with an effortless grace, his webbed feet propelling him silently, his flat tail acting as a rudder. He is carrying a small branch of aspen, a contribution to the winter food store. But even in his work, there is a peaceful rhythm. He approaches a large mound of sticks and mud rising from the middle of a quiet pool, his castle and his fortress. The ocean wraps around you like a heavy quilt, pressing down gently on your limbs, quieting your nerves. The darkness is soft and inviting, a warm velvet cloak that shuts out the light. You feel safe, you feel protected, you feel infinite. The thoughts that used to race through your mind have slowed to a stop, bobbing gently on the surface like driftwood before sinking out of sight. Deeper and deeper you go, drifting into the blue. The sound of the waves becomes a whisper, a hush, a silence. You are floating on a sea of tranquility, a sea of dreams. The water supports your head, your neck, your spine, your legs. There is no effort required, only surrender. The infinite blue stretches out in all directions, a symbol of the limitless capacity of your mind to find peace. The stars above are watching over you, blinking slowly as they too drift across the sky. The night is long and quiet. The ocean is wide and deep. You are a part of this greatness, a part of this silence. Let yourself go completely now. Let the last bit of wakefulness dissolve like salt in the water. You are the river, and you are the sea. You are the flow, and you are the stillness. Drifting, floating, sinking, sleeping. The journey is over. The rest has begun. Into the infinite blue you go, deeper and deeper and deeper. The silence wraps you up. The peace fills you up. You are safe. You are home. You are asleep. The Milky Way is a river of light overhead, reflecting the river of water below, completing the circle of nature. The water is warm, matching the temperature of your skin,
so that you cannot tell where you end and the ocean begins. You are dissolving into the infinite blue. Here in the deep ocean, time does not exist. There are no clocks, no schedules, no deadlines. There is only the eternal rhythm of the tide, the heartbeat of the world. Swish and sway, rise and fall. The repetition is hypnotic, pulling you deeper and deeper into a trance of relaxation. You might imagine a great whale swimming silently far beneath you, a gentle giant of the deep, its slow heartbeat echoing through the water, a companion in the silence. The depth of the ocean offers a sense of profound support, a knowledge that you are held up by miles of water, supported by the density of the sea. You can stop holding yourself up. You can stop holding yourself together and just let the water do the work. Your breathing has slowed down to match the movement of the swells, long and slow and deep. With every exhalation, you sink a little deeper into the mattress of the sea, sinking down into comfort, sinking down into rest. The infinite blue is not empty. It is filled with peace, filled with silence. The moonlight creates a path of silver across the water, a road that leads nowhere and everywhere, a road of dreams. You are drifting along this path, moving effortlessly towards the horizon of sleep. The salt on your lips, the cool breeze on your forehead, the gentle rocking of the cradle, everything is perfectly designed to lull you to sleep. The journey of the river is complete. The cycle is finished. The water that fell as rain has returned to the source, ready to rest before it rises again. You too have finished your journey for the day. You have navigated the rapids, you have traveled the long winding bends, and now you have arrived at the destination. It is time to rest. The tall grasses of the delta and the sheltering arms of the marshlands have faded away behind us now, dissolving into the mist of the shoreline as we drift further out, crossing the invisible threshold where the river ends and the great ocean begins. We have reached the final chapter of the water's long journey, a journey that started as a single frozen drop on a mountain peak and has now expanded to become part of the infinite blue, a vast and boundless expanse that stretches out to the very ends of the earth. There is no longer any current to push you, no longer any banks to guide you. There is only the gentle and rhythmic rising and falling of the sea, a slow and heavy breathing of the planet that cradles you in a state of absolute weightlessness. Imagine the color of the water changing beneath you, shifting from the earthy brown of the river to a deep, clear, and luminous sapphire, a blue so dark and rich that it feels like velvet against the skin. You are floating on the surface of the Pacific, or perhaps the Atlantic, it does not matter which, for all oceans are one, connected by the deep and silent currents that circle the globe. The horizon has vanished. The line between the sea and the sky has been erased by the night, leaving you suspended in a sphere of peaceful darkness where you are the center of the universe. The air here is pure and clean, charged with the minerals of the deep, a cool and refreshing breath that fills your lungs with tranquility. Listen to the sound of the ocean. It is different from the babbling of the brook or the rush of the river. It is a low and resonant hum, a white noise that vibrates at the same frequency as deep sleep. The waves are small and gentle here, mere undulations on the surface, lifting you up slowly and then lowering you down, up and down, up and down, a rocking motion that triggers the most primitive and comforting memories of being held and safe. You can feel the tension in your muscles melting away with each swell, dissolving into the salt water, leaving your body light and free. The river has lost its name, it has lost its shape, it has surrendered its identity to the sea, and in that surrender it has found peace.
This is the lesson of the ocean, the wisdom of letting go, of releasing the need to be someone or go somewhere, and simply allowing yourself to be part of the whole. You are no longer a separate entity fighting against the stream. You are the ocean itself, vast and deep and calm. Above you, the stars are mirrored in the water, creating a sensation of floating in space, surrounded by the glittering lights of the cosmos. The light fades completely now, leaving you in a velvet darkness that is soft and protective. The water glows faintly with phosphorescence, tiny organisms lighting up as the water moves, creating a galaxy below to match the galaxy above. You are floating in the stars. The movement of the boat is barely cancelable, just a gentle drift, a sensation of weightlessness. The delta is the threshold of sleep, the place where you leave the solid land of wakefulness and enter the fluid ocean of dreams. It is a borderland, vague and undefined, where hard edges disappear. You can feel the tension draining out of your body, flowing out of your fingers and toes, dissolving into the brackish water. The river takes your worries, the tide takes your stress and washes them away, leaving you empty and clean. The great river has finished its work, and so have you. There is nothing left to do but drift. The horizon is invisible in the dark, giving you a sense of infinite space, a space where your mind can expand and relax. The lullaby continues, a monotone of silence and water, a drone that vibrates deep in your inner ear. You are safe, you are held, you are part of the flow. The egrets are sleeping, the crabs are buried in the mud, the wind has died down, the world is at peace. The meeting of the tides is a gentle collision, a soft merging, just as your consciousness is merging with the unconscious. Let go of the banks, let go of the shore, let go of the past, drift out into the widening water, into the open arms of the night. The delta whispers to you, a promise of rest, a promise of renewal. You are floating on the edge of the great deep, poised on the brink of a wonderful slumber. The journey of the river is the journey of your soul tonight, finding its way to the great ocean of peace. The water is warm, the night is dark, and the stars are watching. Sleep is waiting for you in the gentle rocking of the tide, in the quiet sigh of the marsh, in the eternal flow of the water returning to its source.
The surface of the water is smooth as oil, dark and glossy, hiding the mysteries of the deep. Occasionally a fish jumps, a splash of silver in the dark, sending ripples spreading out towards the horizon, but otherwise the stillness is absolute. To the west, the first star appears, Venus shining bright and steady, a beacon of the night. To the east, the sky is already black, the curtain of night being drawn slowly across the stage. The humidity here is warm and wrapping, a heavy blanket that settles on your skin, making your limbs feel loose and heavy. You are safe in the marsh, hidden away in the tall grass, invisible to the world. The sounds of civilization are miles away, lost in the distance. Here there is only the sound of the wind moving through the reeds, a soft hushing sound. Hush, hush, the earth calming its children. The delta's lullaby is a song of water meeting water, a song of completion. The silt that the river has carried for thousands of miles is finally laid to rest here, settling to the bottom to build new land, a slow and silent process of creation that happens while you sleep. Everything here is slow. The geology is slow. The water is slow. Your thoughts are slow. You are drifting towards the mouth of the river, but there is no fear, only a sense of coming home. The ocean is not a void.
It is a warm embrace, a place of infinite depth and holding. The boat drifts through a narrow channel where the Spanish moss hangs from the limbs of dead cypress trees, creating silhouettes that look like lace against the sky. The atmosphere is gothic and beautiful, a dreamscape where reality is suspended. The water smells of life, of mud and salt and ancient cycles. You feel a deep connection to the water, as if your own blood is syncing with the rhythm of the tide. In and out, rise and fall. The breath of the sea becomes your breath.
The winding curves of the inland valleys and the shaded tunnels of the forest are far behind us now, as we drift seamlessly into the vast and open world of the delta, the place where the river widens its arms to embrace the sea, and where the land dissolves gently into the water. This is a landscape of infinite horizons, a flat and marshy kingdom where the sky dominates the view, stretching out in a massive dome of changing colors that reflects perfectly in the stillness of the water below. We have arrived at the twilight hour, the magic time between day and night, when the harsh lines of reality soften and blur, leaving only a watercolor painting of peace. The air here changes. The earthy scent of the soil and the pine gives way to the sharp, clean tang of salt and brine, a refreshing aroma that opens the chest and clears the mind. The river is no longer a single focused current, but a network of veins, a labyrinth of channels and bayous and shallow pools that spread out like a fan across the soft earth. Here the water slows down, almost to a standstill, becoming heavy and languid, sensing the presence of the great ocean ahead. It is the meeting place of two worlds, the fresh water of the mountains mixing with the salt water of the deep, a brackish alchemy that creates a unique and fertile ecosystem. Imagine yourself on a small skiff, drifting without a motor, floating on this quiet mixture of waters. The silence here is profound, different from the silence of the mountains. It is a spacious silence, a silence that feels as big as the world itself. The only sound is the gentle lapping of the water against the hull of the boat, a soft lap, lap, lap that counts out the seconds of the evening. The sun has just dipped below the edge of the world, leaving behind a sky painted in shades of bruised purple, deep indigo, and fading rose. This is the violet hour, the time when the world holds its breath. The tall grasses of the marsh, the sedge and the cordgrass, stand motionless in the cooling air, their tips glowing with the last fading light. You might see a white egret standing like a ghost in the shallows, its long neck curved, a statue of pure white against the darkening landscape. It takes flight as you approach, its wings beating slowly, soundlessly, disappearing into the gloom like a spirit of the delta. The water here is not just flowing down, it is breathing, rising and falling with the rhythm of the tides. You can feel the boat lifting ever so slightly as the tide comes in, a gentle heave of the earth's chest, the ocean reaching out to greet the river. It is a comforting sensation, being rocked by the planet itself. The conflict of the river is over. The rushing and the tumbling and the carving are finished. Here, the river learns to yield, to spread out, to let go of its identity and become part of something larger. It is a profound lesson in surrender, a lesson that speaks directly to your tired mind. You do not need to fight anymore. You do not need to push. You only need to float. The delta is a place of rest, a transitional space where the energy of the day dissipates into the calm of the night.
The banks rise up gently on either side, blocking out the rest of the world, creating a private corridor of peace. You can see the sediment swirling in the water, tiny particles of earth dancing in the sunbeams that penetrate the depths. The water is warm to the touch, like a bath prepared by nature. As twilight approaches, the colors shift from gold to violet and mauve. The wind dies down completely, leaving the water surface flawless and unbroken. The reflection of the first evening star appears in the water, dancing slightly as the current moves beneath it. You are drifting into the night, drifting into sleep, carried by a force that is gentle and kind. The meandering bend is a place of transition, a place where the active mind slows down to match the speed of the landscape. There is no rush, there is no hurry. There is only the slow, majestic turning of the river as it winds its way toward the sea. The feeling of movement is so subtle that you feel weightless, as if you are floating on air. The repetition of the curves, left then right, right then left, acts as a pendulum, swinging you deeper into a hypnotic state. The landscape is a lullaby for the eyes, a series of soft shapes and muted colors that demand nothing from you. You can close your eyes now, for the river knows the way. It will carry you safely through the darkness, navigating the turns with an ancient intelligence. You are part of the flow, a drop in the great river of life, moving slowly, peacefully, effortlessly. The meandering bend holds you, protects you, and slows the beating of your heart to a rhythm of perfect rest. Let yourself go. Let yourself drift. Let yourself dissolve into the quiet, winding, endless journey of the river. The world slows down, stops, and waits for you to sleep.
Minutes feel like hours, and hours feel like days. There is no ticking clock to mark the passing of time, only the shadow of the trees moving imperceptibly across the water. You might see a piece of driftwood, smooth and gray, floating alongside your boat, a companion in your aimless journey. It bobs gently, rotating slowly, caught in the same easy rhythm that holds you. The air is thick and warm, smelling of sun-baked mud and sweet clover, a heavy, narcotic scent that makes your eyelids feel pleasantly heavy. In the distance, the heat haze shimmers above the fields, blurring the horizon, softening the edges of the world so that there is nothing sharp to catch your attention. Everything is round, everything is soft, everything is slow. The river creates loops so extreme that it almost turns back on itself, coming within a few yards of where it was miles ago, creating a sense of déjà vu, a sense that we are circling the center of peace. Sometimes the river cuts through these narrow necks of land, leaving behind a crescent-shaped lake, an oxbow lake, a body of water that has stepped out of the flow to rest forever. These quiet pools are the sanctuaries of silence, where the water is perfectly still, covered in a blanket of green duckweed and lily pads. But we stay in the main channel, drifting, always drifting. The sound of the water here is different from the mountain stream. It is not a splash or a roar, but a deep, resonant silence, a presence rather than a noise. It is the sound of a massive volume of water moving without friction, a heavy, sliding sensation that you can feel in your bones. It is a grounding sensation, connecting you to the gravity of the earth. As you round the next bend, the sun begins to lower, casting a path of glittering gold across the water directly towards you. The light is soft and amber, bathing the world in a glow that makes everything look beautiful and old. The birds of the open water, the swallows and the martins, swoop low over the surface, catching insects, their flight patterns mimicking the curves of the river. You feel a profound sense of connection to this landscape, a realization that your life too does not need to be a straight line, that it is okay to wander, to loop back, to take your time. The river does not worry about reaching the ocean. It knows the ocean is inevitable, so it enjoys the journey through the fields. This knowledge releases a deep sigh from your chest, a physical letting go of the tension you have been carrying. You are safe in the meander, held in the crook of the river's arm. The boat rocks ever so slightly, a cradle motion that triggers the oldest memories of comfort.
The jagged peaks of the mountains and the swift currents of the high country have faded into the distance now, left behind as a memory of energy and youth, for we have arrived at the mature stage of the river's life, a time and a place where the urgency of the journey has completely evaporated. We find ourselves in the great wide flatlands, the prairies and the low valleys, where the earth is soft and yielding, allowing the river to stretch out its limbs and relax in the warmth of the afternoon sun. Here, the river does not run, it strolls, it wanders, it meanders with a lazy deliberation that suggests it has nowhere to go and all the time in the world to get there. Imagine looking down from high above, perhaps floating on a soft white cloud, and seeing the river below you not as a straight line, but as a beautiful, sinuous ribbon of blue that loops back and forth across the green landscape like a discarded piece of silk thread. These are the meandering bends, the great S-curves of the water, where the river writes its name in cursive upon the land. There are no straight lines here, for nature abhors a straight line, preferring instead the curve, the circle, the spiral, shapes that embrace and hold rather than pierce and divide. To travel this section of the river is to surrender to the art of the long way around, a practice we have forgotten in our busy lives, but one that the river remembers perfectly. Imagine yourself in a small, flat-bottomed boat, drifting without a paddle, simply letting the slow and sluggish current take you where it will. The water here is smooth as glass, a mirror that reflects the puffy cumulus clouds drifting overhead, so perfectly that it is hard to tell where the sky ends and the water begins. You are floating in the sky, suspended in a world of blue and white. The boat turns slowly, spinning lazily in the gentle eddies, allowing you to see the panorama of the banks revolving around you. On the inside of the bend, there is a wide beach of pale, soft sand, warm from the sun, where the water is shallow and clear. This is where the river deposits what it no longer needs to carry, a lesson in letting go of burdens. On the outside of the bend, the water moves slightly faster, cutting into the clay bank, creating a small cliff where the roots of ancient willow trees are exposed, hanging down like curtains into the flow. The willows are the guardians of the meander, their long, flexible branches weeping into the water, swaying gently with the movement of the current. The sound of the wind in the willow leaves is a soft, dry whisper, a shh, that calms the nerves and settles the spirit. Time acts differently here in the bends. It stretches out, becoming elastic and thin. The sound of the water lapping against the shore is the last thing you hear, a rhythmic lap, lap, lap that soothes the nervous system. The stars come out, not the dim stars of the city, but the blazing, overwhelming stars of the true dark sky, millions of them dusting the heavens, the Milky Way a bright slash of paint across the void. You are lying on a buffalo robe, warm and dry, looking up at this celestial display. You are a part of the core of discovery, a traveler in a new world. But tonight, your only job is to rest. The worries of the future are far away, on another map, in another time. Here, there is only the river, the fire, and the stars. The spirit of the West is a spirit of freedom and space, and you can feel that space opening up inside your mind, clearing out the cramped thoughts, making room for peace. The Golden West is not just a place, it is a state of mind, a place of possibility and quiet grandeur. The river carries the dreams of a young nation, but it also carries your dreams tonight.
Lewis and Clark sought a passage to the sea, but you are seeking a passage to sleep, and you have found it here by the riverside. The fire burns down to glowing red embers, pulsing softly in the dark. The conversation dies down, replaced by the soft breathing of sleeping men and the eternal sound of the moving water. The wilderness is not a threat, it is a cradle. The mountains stand watch, the trees offer shelter, and the river offers a song. Drift away on the current of history, floating past the golden grassy hills, past the shining mountains, past the deep green forests. You are safe, you are warm, and you are free to let go. The journey is long, but there is no rush to finish it. We can stay here in this moment of discovery forever, suspended in the amber light of the past. The river flows on, endless and timeless, carrying the canoe of your consciousness gently, safely, softly down the stream, around the bend, and into the waiting arms of a deep and restorative sleep.
The shining mountains, they called them, and they truly do shine, their snow-capped peaks reflecting the sunlight like beacons of diamond. The river changes now, the muddy brown giving way to a startlingly clear blue, the water cold and fresh, straight from the melting snows of the high country. The boat navigates through the gates of the mountains, where the stone walls rise sheer and vertical from the water, towering thousands of feet overhead, casting deep, cool shadows over the river. It is a place of profound silence, where the slightest sound echoes and amplifies, a natural sanctuary that commands reverence. The water here rushes over smooth, colorful stones, singing a louder, faster song, but it is a happy song, a song of purity and altitude. Imagine the feeling of dipping your hand into this water, the shock of the cold instantly grounding you, making you feel alive and present. The expedition moves on, crossing the Great Divide, leaving the waters that flow east to find the waters that flow west. We find ourselves now on the Clearwater, the Snake, and finally the mighty Columbia River, the great river of the West. The landscape shifts again, from the dry plains to the lush green forests of the Pacific Northwest. Giant Douglas firs and cedars line the banks, their trunks thick and mossy, their branches creating a dark green tunnel through which the river flows. The air is moist and smells of pine resin and damp fern, a rich and oxygenated air that induces deep sleepiness. The current here is swift, carrying the canoes downstream with ease, the hard labor of the upstream journey replaced by a gliding sensation, a surrender to gravity. You are floating past waterfalls that tumble down the mossy cliffs like bridal veils, disappearing into the mist. The light is softer here, filtered through the constant coastal clouds, a diffuse gray and silver light that is easy on the eyes. The river widens, becoming massive and powerful as it nears its end. You can smell the salt in the air now, a tang of the ocean mixing with the forest scents, signaling that the journey is nearing its completion. The seagulls cry overhead, wheeling in the white sky. But let us pull back from the destination and settle into the camp for the night. Imagine it is evening on the banks of the Missouri or the Columbia. The sun has set in a blaze of crimson and gold, leaving the sky a deepening shade of indigo. The campfire is crackling, the flames dancing and casting warm orange light on the faces of the explorers. There is a feeling of immense safety in this small circle of light amidst the vast wilderness. The men are resting, their muscles tired in a good and wholesome way, the kind of tiredness that guarantees a deep and dreamless sleep. The river flows by just feet away, a constant comforting presence in the darkness, guarding the camp. The intimate world of the reeds and the quiet splash of the beaver fade behind us now as we turn our faces toward the setting sun,
embarking on a journey into the vast and open spaces of the imagination, traveling back to a time when the map of America simply faded into blank white space, a land of mystery and promise known only as the Golden West. It is the year 1804, and we are joining the Corps of Discovery, led by the intrepid captains Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, standing at the bow of a wooden keelboat as it pushes off from the dock, leaving the known world behind to follow the great rivers into the unknown. The river here is the Missouri, the Big Muddy, a powerful and winding serpent of water that stretches for thousands of miles into the heart of the continent. The current is strong and relentless, pushing back against the boat, but there is a rhythmic beauty to the struggle, a slow and steady cadence of progress. Imagine the men on the banks pulling the tow ropes, their movements synchronized and deliberate, or the men on the deck planting their long wooden poles into the river bottom, leaning their weight into the wood, walking the boat forward step by step, push and step, push and step. It is a hypnotic rhythm of labor, a physical meditation that clears the mind of all clutter. The landscape around us opens up, revealing the Great Plains in all their glory, a boundless ocean of grass that ripples in the wind like the waves of the sea. The grass is tall and golden, turning to silver when the breeze flips the blades, stretching out as far as the eye can see to meet the massive dome of the blue sky. The air here is different. It is cleaner, sharper, filled with the scent of dry earth and sagebrush, a wild perfume that invigorates the spirit and cleanses the lungs. As the boat moves slowly upstream, cutting through the brown water, you can see the wildlife of this untouched paradise watching from the banks. Massive herds of buffalo, dark and shaggy like ancient boulders, come to life, graze peacefully on the hillsides, their numbers so great they darken the earth, yet their movement is slow and heavy, a slow drifting of dark shapes across the green and gold canvas. They pay no mind to the boat, secure in their domain. Antelope sprint across the ridges, white patches flashing in the sun, moving with a fluid grace that makes them look like they are flying. The river is the highway, the only road into this wilderness, and it dictates the pace of life. There is no rushing the river. You must travel at its speed, respecting its power and its bends. The days are long and filled with the sights of new wonders, sandstone cliffs that rise from the water's edge like ruined cathedrals, white and cream and rust red, sculpted by the wind and the rain into fantastic shapes that defy description. Lewis sits on the deck, his journal on his knee, the scratch of his quill pen capturing the moment, turning the wild reality into history with every stroke of ink. You can feel the sense of awe that permeates the expedition, the feeling of being the first to see these sights with fresh eyes. As the journey continues westward, the land begins to rise, the air grows cooler and thinner, and on the horizon, faint at first like clouds, but then hardening into jagged lines of white and gray, appear the Rocky Mountains.
These are the voices of the river at night, a lullaby that has been sung for millions of years. Fireflies begin to appear in the tall grass, tiny sparks of yellow light that blink on and off, dancing in the humid air. They reflect in the dark water, creating a universe of stars both above and below. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming water lilies, a heavy, sweet perfume that weighs down the eyelids. A muskrat swims by, smaller than the beaver, hugging the shoreline, moving through the roots of the willow trees. He is busy but quiet, another small life supported by the generosity of the river. The reeds themselves seem to whisper as a gentle breeze passes through them,
a dry rustling sound like the turning of a page or the hushing of a parent. Hush, hush, they say, calming the world, telling everything to settle down. The river is the great connector, bringing all these lives together, the bird, the beast, the insect, and you, the observer. You are part of this ecosystem tonight, a silent traveler protected by the guardians of the banks. There is no fear here, only the natural order of things, where every creature has its place and its time. The heron watches over you with his stoic gaze. The beaver builds safety into the structure of the night, and the deer reminds you of the gentleness that exists in the world. As the darkness becomes complete, the river becomes a flowing road of obsidian, guiding you through the night. The wildlife settles down. The birds tuck their heads under their wings. The animals find their soft beds of leaves or moss, and the world goes to sleep. You can feel the peace of the wild wrapping around you, a blanket of natural quiet that muffles the noise of civilization. The river flows on, past the sleeping heron, past the beaver's lodge, past the deer in the woods, carrying you gently toward the realm of dreams. The guardians of the banks remain behind, keeping their watch, ensuring that the flow of life continues undisturbed. You are safe to let go now, to let your mind drift like a leaf on the current, supported by the water, watched over by the eyes of the wild. The night is friendly, the river is wise, and the creatures of the bank are your companions in the stillness. Sleep comes easily in such company, natural and deep, as you float on through the velvet darkness, surrounded by the breathing, living presence of the river and its guardians. This lodge is a marvel of engineering, a safe haven with an underwater entrance that keeps the family warm and dry, protected from predators and the cold winds. Imagine the inside of that lodge, dark and cozy, smelling of wood chips and wet fur, where the beaver family huddles together in a pile of warmth, safe and secure, while the river flows around them. It is the ultimate image of home, of a sanctuary built with one's own hands, a place to rest after the labors of the day. The beaver dives, a smooth arch of his back, and disappears beneath the surface with barely a splash, leaving only a few bubbles to mark his passage. The water settles back into smoothness, hiding the secret life below. On the far bank, where the forest meets the river in a tangle of roots and ferns, there is a subtle movement, the snapping of a dry twig that breaks the silence. A white-tailed deer steps cautiously out of the shadows, her coat the color of autumn leaves, her large ears swiveling to catch the faintest sound. She pauses, looking left and right, her dark eyes gentle and wary, before lowering her head to drink. The sound of her lapping the water is soft and rhythmic, a primitive sound of sustenance and life. She is joined by a fawn, small and dappled with white spots, who mimics her every move, learning the ways of the river. They stand there together, mirrored in the calm water, a double image of grace and fragility. The river nourishes them, cooling their thirst, washing away the heat of the day. They do not stay long, just long enough to drink their fill, before turning and vanishing back into the green embrace of the forest as silently as smoke. They are the spirits of the woods, the gentle souls that walk softly upon the earth. The light continues to fade, turning the green of the reeds to purple and the blue of the water to black. The sounds of the day, the call of the hawk, the buzz of the fly, are replaced by the sounds of the evening. The crickets begin their nightly chorus, a rhythmic chirping that acts as a natural metronome for sleep. The frogs join in, the deep bass croak of the bullfrog resonating across the water, answering one another from bank to bank in a slow and steady conversation.